Chapter 26. As the warm sunlight poured in through my window, I stretched uncomfortably, feet crammed against the footboard of my bed. It was still difficult getting used to how much I'd grown over the summer. I was nearly 16 years of age and just under 2 meters tall. I like to think that my height was the main factor for Father not being overly aggressive lately, and not just our slowly growing apart, but that was a chilling thought. Was he really so fearful to cause me to be angry? Admittedly, there had been a few times over the summer when I had become quite angry, but it had never manifested itself through physical violence. Even the time when I was asked to watch Hannah on a Sunday afternoon, when I desperately wanted to go visit Colette, my reaction had caused Hannah to burst into tears, which had immediately drained the anger out of me. That day I realized that anger came with a price, and it almost always hurt someone. But Colette had also become a big part of my life. The feelings I felt for her were something I had never experienced. Sure, I was physically attracted to other girls at my school, but those were fleeting bouts of shallow desire. I didn't really spend much time with them outside of school, so nothing further came of those feelings. But Colette was different. Over the previous summer, I had spent increasing amounts of time with her, as much as our other obligations would allow. I still had school and my apprenticeship with Father, but I was gradually allowed more freedom to spend on my own in the city. Freedom I chose to spend with Colette. She continued to devote more time learning her family trade, taking on more responsibilities there while spending less time with her family. Yes, I continued to visit their home and spend time with their family most weeks, but we spent increasingly more time outside of their house, in various places around the city. Mostly, we spent time at the beach together, swimming out to Watcher's Island and lounging on the banks there, soaking up the sun before we would swim back. The first time we swam out there, I was so exhausted we had to wait hours before I could make the swim back to shore. As I continued to check on the trees growing along the River of Sorrows, she would occasionally join me for the ride there and back. They continued to grow by the same pattern I had noticed over the first year of observation. More during the wet season, less throughout the dry season and summer. That was often another opportunity to swim together, and most of the time that location was much more secluded. On our first visit, she had wisely worn her swimsuit under her regular clothing, while I had opted to swim in my underclothes, which weren't really much different from my swim trunks, though every time after that, I had also worn my swim trunks in case we went swimming again. From the first time I had seen her in her swimsuit, I marveled at her body, lean yet slightly curvy at the same time. I had occasionally wondered about it, even though she mostly wore long, flowing dresses or loose shirts and pants, but every curve and feature was evident in her swimsuit, a swimsuit that was still more modest than most other women wore. Still, I occasionally wondered what she would look like without it, and that bothered me. I knew that was lust speaking for me, and I knew she was much more than what her body looked like. How often had I also marveled at her wit, kindness, and humor. Mother had told me years earlier that I would begin to feel differently about women, and oh, how I was beginning to understand what she was talking about. The anxiety and tension I felt when I was around her kept growing, until one day towards the end of the summer, it was the 6th time we swam out to Watcher's Island. By then, I was becoming quite proficient at swimming the distance. As we lay in the grass together, looking up at the blue sky and the clouds floating above us, my hand found hers and squeezed firmly. In response, she rolled towards me, prompting me to roll over to face her. She had a familiar look in her eyes as she gazed at me, a look I had seen from time to time. Suddenly she cupped my face with her hands, leaned over and kissed me firmly on the lips. Though she had continued to greet me with a kiss on each cheek after La Toussaint, that had been the first time she had kissed me like that on the lips. The kiss lasted for a few seconds. Then she broke it and drew back, studying my face to gauge my response. My response was one of frozen shock. I realized after a few moments that I had stopped breathing, so I inhaled deeply.
You don't want?
She trailed off in disappointment. Before she could gather her courage to finish the question, I mimicked her actions, taking her face in my hands and drawing her in for another kiss. I firmly pushed my lips against hers, opening my mouth slightly naturally. In response, she put one hand behind my head, pulling me closer to her so that our bodies were pressed together. I took my top hand from her face and put it on the side of her waist, feeling both the nearly dry material of her swimsuit and her warm skin beneath. I focused on breathing through my nose while my mouth was occupied by hers. Sometime later, she broke the kiss, drew back and looked at me. I couldn't help the grin that spread across my face, one that she mirrored.
I've wanted to do that for so long now, probably since the first time I kissed you on the cheeks, but...
She trailed off again, a pensive look on her face. I drew myself up to lean on my elbow and look down on her, intensely curious about her thoughts.
But what?
She also leaned up on her elbow.
But I didn't think you were ready for it.
And what was different about today? What made you think I was ready for it today?
She looked into my eyes for a few more moments before replying.
I don't know, Corban. It's just... we've been spending so much time together, and it just felt right today. Was I wrong to think so?
In response, I leaned forward and kissed her again, this time tasting the hint of sea salt on her lips. After another minute or so, we were startled by the sound of someone walking through the grass some distance from us.
I think it's probably time to swim back, don't you?
She jumped to her feet before I could respond, which was probably for the best, because all I could think about was continuing to hold her, to kiss her, too. I didn't even know what else. All I knew was that I wanted more of her.